you all have a wonderful conversation, and I'll be checking in momentarily, okay?
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, President Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Hi, President Wilson. How are you?
Quite well, Oyin. How are you doing today?
Doing good. It's been a very eventful couple of weeks, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. It certainly has been. It's been last week or so, unlike perhaps any other that we have seen in the history of America. And so I often wondered, as we were going through the events of last week, what was going through the minds of our students here at Morgan, and how were you processing a lot of things? How were you processing what it means to be an American? And how were you processing what is the state, the current state of American democracy? And then last, how were you thinking about, as students, your role in ensuring that what you were seeing was not what you were going to embrace as leaders once you get out into the world, and your responsibility, having been anointed as Morgan graduates, would be to go out and right the wrongs that you saw, and to make this country what it should be, to live up to the ideals embodied in the Constitution. Those were some of the things that I was thinking as I saw what I saw and tried to put myself in the position of our students.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time to be, a Black person, a young Black person, especially, a student at an HBCU, dealing with not only, um, coup attempts at the Capitol, but also this past election in the midst of a global pandemic, and that's some of the subjects that we definitely want to touch on with you today as well. And so we want to kind of start with some, semi-positive news, which is that on the 20th, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be sworn in office. So in 2017, President-elect Joe Biden actually gave a commencement address here at Morgan. So what was the story kind of behind getting him to give that commencement address?
Well, I was very interested in having former Vice President at the time, Joe Biden, to give the commencement address at Morgan for several reasons. One was that I had been in several audiences where he had spoken nationally, and he would always reflect very, very fondly, I should say, on his relationship with Jim Gilliam. Mr. Jim Gilliam was a Morgan alum, and so was Mr. Gilliam's late wife, and then Mr. Gilliam's son, Jim Jr., was also a Morgan alum, and indeed, College of Liberal Arts is named after him, the James E. Gilliam Junior College of Liberal Arts, and Mr. Biden had an extremely close relationship with the Gilliam family in Delaware. And so here I am in these audiences sitting as the president at Morgan, and almost out of the blue, Mr. Biden would start talking about how much he respected HBCUs because his close friends had gone there. And when he came back to Delaware to run for office, the late Mr. Gilliam Sr. Came to him and said, Joe, if you really want to win, you can't do that without those students down at Dell State. and that Joe Gilliam then took him down to Dell State, and those students became active in his campaign, and that is really how he got involved in elected politics. And so every time I heard him, I heard a genuine person. I heard a person who really understood the value of our institutions, who respected them. And then I saw a person that former President Obama had also indicated by his selecting him as his vice president was really understanding of the history and culture of African Americans in this country. And so I thought that he had a great story to tell, and I wanted the Morgan State University community to hear his story and his special relationship to Morgan. And so therefore, I reached out to a representative, and at the time, the now president at Delaware State, Tony Allen, was still very, very close to Mr. Biden. And it was really through Tony Allen, the current president at Delaware State, that I was able to make the connection and to get him here on the campus.
Hi, President Wilson. So to that, for the first time, we're seeing HBCUs being represented in the White House alone. And for that, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is a Howard, University graduate, and Biden received the honorary doctorate from Morgan. What do you think the significance of having two leaders with HBCU ties at the highest offices in the White House will be?
This is a real special time for this country to have the leadership at the level of president and vice president, who both have an incredible relationship to HBCUs. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is bringing to the White House a lived experience, having attended an HBCU at the undergraduate level and all that it means. And by hearing her, you know that that was a transformational experience for her, as it was for me in my undergraduate years at Tuskegee Institute, as it is for you in your undergraduate years here at Morgan. And so she brings a level of authenticity to the true lived experience of students at HBCUs. Then on the other hand, you have President-elect Joe Biden, who did not attend an HBCU, but in my view, he is as close as anyone that I know of who did not attend an HBCU, but who really understands and values those institutions in a very genuine way. And so it means that our institutions, meaning HBCUs, are in a position where if there is a conversation happening at the highest offices in the country about the competitiveness of America, about the centrality of educational preparation, to closing the equity gap in America, that conversation is not going to take place without there being a voice representing all of higher education in the room. And I don't think we've had that before. No, I don't think. We have never had that before in these two positions, and we have not had this kind of advocacy in these high positions within the incoming administration with regard to HBCUs as we have now. So we are very, very thankful that we have these dynamic world-class leaders and high levels of advocacy on behalf of historically Black colleges and universities in America.
Yeah, definitely. And on the cusp of that kind of unprecedented representation in the White House, we've seen news, last week of the riots that occurred on Capitol Hill. And so where were you on Wednesday, January 6th, when you first heard of the riots and what was going on? And what were some of your initial thoughts? And kind of adding on to that, now that it's been a few days and we've had some time to process, and more news has been released on the plans for these events that took place. What are you thinking now?
On January 6th, when this attempted coup took place in the nation's capital, I was here in my office on campus. I had just concluded a virtual meeting with our SGA leaders. I have a monthly meeting with them, and I had just concluded that meeting with them. And interestingly enough, as a part of this meeting, I decided to introduce some topics, around democracy and the fragility of democracy, and their role as up and coming leaders in understanding democracy and in fighting for the preservation of democratic ideals. And little did I know that once I concluded that meeting with them and turned on my television, that I would see in a matter of minutes something that I just, in my wildest imagination, I never ever thought I would see in America. I turned on the TV because I had never seen the opening of the ballots and the counting of the votes to determine the next president of the United States. And given all of the drama that was being kind of ginned up about this, I really wanted to see if this was going to unfold in a very non-eventful way. And then all of a sudden, I saw individuals breaching, if you will, of the barriers around the Capitol and overrunning the very, very parsimonious number of police and guards. And then all of a sudden, in a matter of almost seconds, seemingly hundreds, thousands of people are scaffolding the Capitol and all over the place. And then running in the building. And I just thought that I was watching something from another far-flung corner of the world. I've traveled all over the world. I visited all kinds of mature democracies, republics, and I thought what I was seeing was similar to some things that I had seen in countries that just don't have any form of the rule of law, don't have any form of a peaceful transfer of power. And that was not America. And I even remarked at the time, I don't believe that I'm witnessing an attempted coup in the United States of America. And I could not almost process that because of what I saw. And then I saw in the faces of the terrorists, terror. I saw hatred. I saw a desire on their part, through anger to destroy almost anything in their way. And it was ferocious. And I was stunned. And quite frankly, I still haven't recovered. The nation has to heal, but we can't heal until the people who are responsible for this attempted coup in America are identified and are brought to justice. And that starts with everyone, and I'm not leaving out anyone. Those who basically incited this kind of insurrection, and those who did it. I'm still angry. But we have to move beyond the anger, but it can't be moving beyond it without punishing the people who initiated it. Because I know, I don't have to think, I know that if those individuals had been of a different hue, we would have had, unfortunately, bodies all over the US Capitol. I know that. I participated in some of the Black Lives Matter protests. I saw the magnitude of resistance there put up by the police and by others. And I didn't see any of that. So it was a double standard of the highest order, which in and of itself calls for a deeper conversation in this country and a deeper reckoning with the racism that is still so much a part of our culture. And I hope that the incoming Biden administration will start the process of enabling us to have that conversation in the country and bring into existence meaningful reform, that will lead to more equality, more economic equality, equality and social justice, and all of those other areas that are so deeply rooted in equality foundation in this country.
It's funny you segue into the next question. This past election has been like any other. We've been hearing that from time and time again, from the undercurrent of the pandemic to the violent riots of the Capitol. Kind of touched on it, but what do you think this next administration is going to bring to the White House that has been missing for the past 4 years?
I certainly think when you look at the agenda that the Biden administration has put forth, it's going to be an agenda that the country has needed for a while, and I think we all will benefit. So let me start with student loans from the standpoint of college students. And so our top priority for this administration, is to forgive a huge portion of the incredible debt that students have accumulated to get college degrees. That would be enormous. It would be transformational, because I know that I have so many students here at Morgan who have accumulated debt just significant debt to get their degree. We have one of the highest loan averages amongst students in the state of Maryland at about $32,000. And so they are really, this incoming administration, that's one of the areas in which they will bring about some change that is very different than what we're seeing now. Then there is the matter of tone, respect for individuals who are different on many dimensions, but we're all Americans. And so I think when I hear incoming President Biden and incoming Vice President Harris, we are hearing individuals who understand what it means to lead in the United States at the highest level of leadership, and to lead in a way that will be respected around the world and not have the world to be laughing at us, which, interestingly enough, I know that the world has been laughing at our leadership, for the last 4 years. And I don't think you're going to see that with a Biden-Harris administration. It means that based on what I have seen in terms of the appointments of individuals who will be leading our government, that we will have competence again, that people will be in those positions who have the skills to do the job that is demanded of them, and not be lackeys, and not be individuals who are there for no other reason except they are somebody's cousin, or they know somebody. And so, yeah, there will be other significant policy differences. But I think, first of all, there has to be an intent to restore this great country to a level of respectability around the world. Now, we here at Morgan are saying to all of our students, this is a global university. We are educating you to understand the world, to understand different histories, different cultures, different nationalities, different religions, and respect those. Everybody is not going to be like you. And that world has to also value what is coming out of the United States and what is coming out of Morgan again. Else, what are we doing all this for? It's for naught. And so the Biden-Harris administration is going to return America to respectability on the world stage. Also, I am encouraged that the Biden-Harris administration is going to have a healthy understanding and appreciation of science, and of climate warming and climatology, and place the United States back in the Paris Peace Accord. Paris Energy Accord, and to understand that we have to begin to protect this planet if we expect it to be around for centuries, and our children and grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren will still be able to enjoy the kind of life that we enjoy. This administration is going to, I think, enable many of us to stand tall and proudly again and say, wherever we are, I'm from the United States of America. And not be ashamed of that or embarrassed by it.
Speaking of kind of those changes that are going to be made as far as leadership roles and high offices in the country, last week, as you know, Morgan alumni Chief Pittman was named acting chief of the United States Capitol Police. What does that kind of mean for you as university president? And do you know Chief Pittman? Have the two of you ever crossed paths?
I want to extend my congratulations to Chief Pittman on assuming the role of acting chief of the Capitol Hill Police. I am extremely impressed with her background. She's been in the force now for 15, 16 or so years at the highest levels of leadership beyond the level of chief. We know that she received a world-class education here at Morgan as one of our proud 1999 psychology graduates, and that she has the kind of experience coupled with that educational preparation she received here at Morgan, and then she went on and received some additional educational preparation and is currently working on her doctorate. And so educationally, we know that she has the tools in the toolbox to enable her to provide the kind of solid leadership to law enforcement within the Capitol to keep our Congress people and their staffs safe in the building itself. For me as president at Morgan, it's just further evidence of that. Morgan graduates are everywhere. And when the opportunity presents itself for them to step up and lead with significance, they don't hesitate. And Chief Pittman did not hesitate when her name was called, because she knew she was ready, she was well prepared, and she is personifying the kind of attitude that the graduates of Morgan possess. And so she's the first woman, the first Black. I think she understands the significance of that. And I hope our students look at her and also come away with yet another example to show that there is no office in this country and indeed around the world that they cannot ascend to. And that is the great takeaway for me. Congratulations to our great alumna, our incredible sister, Chief Pittman.
Switching gears here, the country is in the process of giving people who have received the vaccine, they're in the stage of the second dosage of the vaccine. We've seen Vice President-elect Kamala Harris take it, along with former President Barack Obama, President-elect Joe Biden, just showing people that it's safe to take. There's also surrounding, especially in the Black and Brown communities, there's large talks that they are skeptical of the vaccine. The coronavirus has disproportionately affected Black and Brown people, and yet a large number of those communities are apprehensive, like I said, about taking the COVID vaccine. Have you or do you plan to take the vaccine? And what role do you think the vaccine will play in the country's progression back to some sort of normalcy?
I do understand the hesitancy on the part of the Black community in rolling up their sleeves to take the vaccine. I understand that, of course, as a result of my own background and having gone to an HBCU where the Tuskegee syphilis experiment was very prominent, and individuals who had contracted syphilis were placed in a study where many of them got their placebo and they did not get treatment. And so as a result, syphilis was able then to proliferate throughout the Black community. When many of those men thought they were actually getting a treatment, they were getting a placebo. And so there is a deep-seated level of mistrust in the Black community with regard to the way medicine and vaccines have treated them. Also, we understand the great story of Henrietta Lacks, who grew up here in our city of Baltimore in the Turner Station area of Baltimore, and her cells, were used by Johns Hopkins to basically create research discoveries for all kinds of diseases all over the world. And then, of course, she was never appropriately recognized for that. So I understand that within the Black community, there is not a high level of trust in vaccinations, given our history. So with that understanding, I also understand my role as president at Morgan, and it is to show, based on my own taking of the vaccine, that I believe in it. I have done as much research as anyone can possibly do. I trust the science, I trust the scientists, and I plan to take the vaccine at the first opportunity that I can get to do that. And was on the phone today trying to figure out how Morgan can become a vaccination site in the state. We are very, very encouraged by how those talks are unfolding. But the state has a tiered system in terms of who is in line first, who is in line second. The first, of course, are health workers and frontline individuals. And I think right now, education may be like in the second or third tier. And so the moment that opportunity presents itself as president at Morgan, I will take the vaccine, I will videotape it and basically show the university community that I trust that it is safe. Second, based on what I'm hearing from Dr. Fauci and our public health officials, it seems that now we in this country have to reach somewhere around 75% of the people actually taking the vaccine in order for us to reach immunity and to cut down on the spread. And so our ability here at Morgan and the ability of this society to move back to where we were as of January of 2020 is dependent on 75% of the citizens taking the vaccine. And so what I say to our students, our university community, to the larger community that is perhaps listening to this, we all want to get out of our hemmed in areas. You know, we all want to reestablish our face-to-face relationship. We all want to see our families, our friends, and to rekindle, you know, those face-to-face personal relationships. And I want Morgan to reopen fully. I want to see 8,000 students on my campus every day. You know, I want to hear the yelling. I want to hear the sororities singing and the fraternities, you know, scrolling and stepping. I want to walk through the student center and be able to stop my students and have meaningful conversations and dialogues with them without necessarily having to think about wearing a mask. And if we all want that, which I think we all do, then I say to our university community, read what you need to read about the efficacy of the vaccine. And once you do, I certainly hope that you will roll up your sleeve like I plan to roll up mine and take it.
Yeah, and that's just, you know, the vaccine debate is just one of the things that, one of the strong topics that are being debated today, as is mask wearing as well, while we're waiting on that rollout for immunization. And you haven't been necessarily shy on a number of topics that have been up for debate, a number of social issues during this year and last. Um, what do you think as far as, you know, Democrats and Republicans just being split on the subject of mask wearing? Where do you stand on the matter, and why have you kind of chosen, particularly I think for the bulk of 2020, to kind of raise your voice for what you believe in?
I, as a university president, I am a student of higher education, history, and relevance in the United States. And when I look back over the very consequential and significant HBCU presidents, they have not struggled with understanding what comes with the role of president when you are in the seat. And you have to speak out for injustice. You have to speak out for wrongs. You have to speak out in favor of justice and against injustice. And you cannot be quiet when what I call foolishness rules the day. We have great examples of that here at Morgan in, for example, former President Jenkins, who led this institution through an incredibly turbulent period of the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. And he understood all too well that his role as president at Morgan was to speak truth to power. Benjamin Elijah Mays, the former president at Morehouse, understood that. John Hope, the former president at Howard University, understood that. Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee understood that. And so being this history of higher education buff and understanding those greats that have held the presidency before me, I don't hesitate in basically saying to all who will listen, this is not right. And you cannot allow yourself to be drowned in lies and not speak out about it. And so I have not been hesitant about speaking out when I believe things have just reached a level of absolute nonsense in this country, which the whole notion of whether to wear a mask or not has reached. There should be zero debate in this country about whether we should put on a mask. And I have no idea how in the heck wearing a mask to protect yourself and to not infect another person has become politicized. That makes no sense. And so I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in free speech. I believe that you have the freedom through the First Amendment. But you don't have the freedom to kill me. And you're not wearing a mask and you are infected. You're saying that you're exercising your free speech. Well, you're not, because that only goes so far. So wearing a mask for me is not a partisan issue. It's a life and death issue. That is not a blue issue or a red issue. It is a life issue. And all of us will be well served by wearing it until we all reach herd immunity in this country.
Thank you, President Wilson. That was our last question. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add before we go that you think that we haven't touched on?
I would just like to say to our students here at Morgan, I understand that this year has been one like no other. I hope that you are taking notes. I hope you are not allowing every week to become a blur, that you are understanding and paying attention to issues of social unrest and are making notes along the way as to why so many, primarily young people who look like you, were being kind of killed for no reason. And what is going to be your responsibility when you get your sheepskin from this institution to make sure that that is just not going to be a part of the fabric of your America as your future unfolds in front of you? Take notes in order to prepare yourself later to take action.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. And I'm very, very proud of the two of you. Keep doing what you're doing. You're very professional in your task. And I know you're going to get out there and we're going to be reading about you just as we are reading about Chief Pittman.
Thank you.
So hopefully you got something there you can work with.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, anything else?
No, I was able to listen in a little bit there as I worked handily in the background. Sound like you guys had a very, very robust conversation. As noted at the very beginning, it takes some time for the file to render. As soon as it is ready, I will share with you a link to download. I don't know if for certain if there's a time period, so please download it, within a good amount of time so that it doesn't expire, okay? Dr. Wilson, that concludes everything. I appreciate your time this afternoon. We will be in touch, and thank you, ladies. Again, I look forward to reading and seeing the finished product. Okay.
Thank you so much,
Right.
Jackson.
All right. Okay. Take care. Bye bye.
Okay.